Lovely. Thank you, Kirsten. And first of all, thank you, Toddle and Kirsten, for reaching out and inviting me to come and share some ideas. Thank you for joining me. This is probably the end of many, many hours online. And so feel free just to turn your cameras on just for 1 minute so I can say hello and look at your faces. Feel free to, take a break from the screen. Thank you, Andrea. I noticed your cute, like little headphones. And I was thinking, are they lights at the top? Are they, hi, Nancy, you're making me nervous now by coming to my session. And Rebecca, hi, Jenny. So it's lovely to see you. Feel free to take a screen break at any time. So, turn your cameras on and off. I do want you to look after your well-being and have a little bit of a digital detox too. So, okay, what am I going to talk about today? First of all, in case I haven't met you, as Kirsten said, I'm based in Hong Kong. I moved to Hong Kong in 1991. It was a very different place then. And so that makes it my 34th year in Hong Kong. And this is where I call home. And I teach on the master's and the PGDE program at the University of Hong Kong. Before that, in the 34 years I've been in Hong Kong, I was actually a former classroom teacher for 27 years. So my passion, my heart is really in the classroom and connecting with my students. And I still get to do that in my school partnerships where I co-plan and co-teach with the teachers that I work with. My research areas are in educational technology. So my first undergraduate degree was in mathematics, and I've done a lot of curriculum development for mathematics, but I thought I really wanted to research and learn more about an area that I didn't know much about. So my doctorate's in educational technology, and I feel that AI is just, falling under that huge umbrella term of educational technology. And I love to eat. Does anyone else love to eat? Like, just say yes in the chat box. Yep, I can see hearts. And I'm very lucky that I get to eat my way around the world. And this was taken 2 weeks ago. I'm sure you recognize, maybe just pop in the chat box what, take a guess of what you think that is. It is actually what it looks like. And we're in Mexico City, just enjoying the rich culture, the beautiful food, and exploring the streets. It was actually my 25th wedding anniversary. So we chose Mexico City, of all places, to go and celebrate. Kirsten, has anyone guessed what these are? I'm not sure.
I don't see any guesses yet. I see love for eating your way around the world. And now I see the suggestion of tacos.
Oh, yes, soft tacos, amazing tacos. So we kind of ate them for breakfast, lunch, and dinner because they were quite amazing. Okay, so before we actually start delving into some of the issues to do with AI-powered pedagogy, and that is going to cover an evolving unified AI policy and how we use design thinking for that. We're also going to have a look at academic integrity. But before we do that, please make sure that you either have your phone or mobile device. If you don't, it doesn't matter because we'll still give you the links that you can click on. And then I noticed in some of the other sessions, it was wonderful to see people taking notes, because I think handwriting is like, we don't want it to be a lost art. We're on the computers typing all the time. So I really do encourage everyone to take some notes in all of the sessions. And we know a lot of research says that writing notes can actually improve your ability to remember, to synthesize information, and you're distilling information and synthesizing as you're listening and taking notes, right? So I encourage everyone to take notes. And then also, if you have any questions, please feel free to put it in the chat. And Kirsten will, just alert me to these questions so that we can pause every so often. Now, this session is going to be a workshop. So it has been designed as a workshop where we're going to be interactive. And I'm really hoping to hear some of your opinions and your experience so that we honor, where you're coming from in terms of AI-powered pedagogy and also the AI landscape that we find ourselves in. Before I start, I think we should really focus on something very important that I know a lot of teachers are fearful about, Research suggests AI enhances education, but it can't replace teachers. And our unique role in developing empathy, cultural understanding, and critical thinking remains essential. You know, a large language model cannot have these qualities. And AI should complement, but not substitute human educators. So we can use AI tools to augment learning for students, augment and streamline our workflow so that we're able then to focus on building those beautiful relationships with our students in class and getting to know them as human beings. And the human element in teaching is essential for creating this supportive and engaging learning environment. And that was just released in 2024. So current research always still suggests that we will not be replaced. So I wanted to just kind of address that before I move into the concept of Hansei. So Hansei is a Japanese concept. It's a word that means reflection, or it's closer to kind of introspection. And it's a concept that kindergarten students are taught from a very young age because it's really about trying to foster this the importance of continuous learning and regular self-reflection. So Hansei is this concept that's really about the importance of using self-reflection to learn and to grow throughout your entire life. So we're going to engage in some Hansei, okay, at the moment. So I just released a book last year called AI-Powered Pedagogy, and I'm going to be unpacking some of the main ideas from the book. And one of the ideas that I talk about is the different stages of AI adoption. The stages that we go through, they're cyclical, they go back and forth. And I think we're all familiar when ChatGPT 2022 was released. I found out about it in January 2023, a few months later. And I think people were in a firefighting stage. We were in survival stage where we were not familiar with the tools. All these tools were being released and we didn't know which tools to choose. And, you know, schools were just trying to provide just basic, I think, information to the school community about the tools and what the implications were. Now, after the survive stage, there's the strive stage. And this is, I think, a very important stage where we allow teachers to play and to start adopting some of these tools. And in this stage, it's really important that we establish academic integrity and ethics protocols. So I know that sometimes schools wait a little bit later to establish these very important unified AI policies. I think it should be evolving, but I think the process needs to start very early on so that everybody is on the same page and they're unified. The school and all the members of the community are unified in their approach. And then the next stage is thrive. So we have survive, strive, thrive. And this is when we're using AI tools to really enhance learning through maybe more innovative or progressive pedagogical approaches. And this is the stage where we're going to have a lot of professional development as well to support teachers, to support parents, to support all the stakeholders in a school community. And then we have arrive, which is not, I want to stress this is not the final stage because it's cyclical. So we might come to a arrive stage where there's a total transformation of pedagogy and we utilize AI to create new pedagogies that were previously unimaginable. But every time a new tool comes out or a new, for example, the EU AI Act, if that came out, we may go back to survive again because we have to unpack, you know, the governance protocols and the suggestions from the EU AI Act. And then we may be going through this cycle, the AI adoption cycle, at different stages and going back and forth. So what has Hansei got to do with this? So in terms of self-reflecting where we are, I'm going to invite people. This is a Mentimeter. I hope it works. You know, we never know when those technology gremlins are going to come and visit. And I'm going to invite Nanid to put the link as well. If you don't have a mobile device, no problem. I need to move myself out of the way in case you need to pick up the QR code. And please self-reflect. Where do you think you are today at this stage in terms of your journey? Are you at survive, strive, thrive, or arrive? Oh, great. I can see some of the dots flying across now. Wonderful. Lovely. I'm so glad it's working. Okay, we have a nice cluster at Strive at this stage today. So this is a little bit like a snapshot in time, right? We're taking a snapshot in time today, but tomorrow you may be at Thrive, or next week you may be at Arrive, or maybe tomorrow you might go back to Survive because of, you know, everything that you've learned over the day, the course of the day. Okay, so that's really interesting. We've got great, wonderful that we've got people in every stage. And that's what I was hoping for, because we're always going to get people in every single stage. And it's not right or wrong, but it's the journey and knowing that we have other stages that we can go through once we're at a particular stage. I was talking to a principal and we wasn't familiar with this AI adoption stages, and he had just joined the school and he was so busy, so frantic, didn't have time for lunch, was constantly on emails. And I showed him this graphic and I said, you know, in terms of where you are, where do you think you are? And then when he identified he was at Survive, the firefighting stage, it gave him some reassurance that it's okay to be firefighting and not know, you know, where you're going, because you're at the beginning of your journey in terms of AI adoption. Okay, thank you for that. It's lovely to see people in all 4 stages there. Okay, so I said earlier that I'm going to be unpacking 3 ideas. One is about design thinking and the importance of design thinking and using that to create an evolving unified AI policy. The second one is about academic integrity. And this is a huge topic that we really need to, I think, pay more attention to and really develop more protocols around. And then a lot of research recently has been released about critical thinking. Are we going to lose our critical thinking if we're going to rely on these AI tools that now can do mathematics and they could reason and they can write, you know, a PhD thesis using deep research? So how might we actually leverage AI to enhance critical thinking and not de-skill our students and ourselves? Okay, so the first one about an evolving unified AI policy, and it's using design thinking. So I just want to talk about some of the benefits of design thinking. It's something that the IB really encourages with PYP schools, and it's a philosophy from Stanford D School, the design school. And there are 5 different stages that you go through, and I'll talk through them. But let's have a look at the key benefits of design thinking. This philosophy and approach has really created some of the most innovative inventions that you could never possibly think of. So Airbnb, imagine you have a company that don't own any hotels and they don't own any residences. Even Uber was created using design thinking. And I have heard that in Japan, there is rent your own husband for the day, which which I think would be useful, you know, in some context. So, you know, it's limitless of what the design thinking process can really help with. It helps navigate ambiguity and complexity. It ensures empathy and human centricity when you're trying to find a solution to a problem. It articulates and prioritizes challenges. It supports agility and flexibility in solutions. It defines success criteria fairly, precisely as well. And really, the I think cherry on the top is it develops creative confidence while you're having fun. So what are those stages of design thinking and how can we use them to create an evolving unified AI policy? Okay, so I'm gonna hit pause now, and I'm gonna ask for some of your thinking. I would love to hear some of your thinking. So, what do you see in terms of this diagram, and what makes you say that? And I call it a goodie bag. So here is a link to a Padlet wall that's got some resources on. It's got some graphics, and so please pick this up. And I know that the link is going to be put, is that right? Is the link going to be put into, I guess the link is already in the chat. So please open this up. What do you see? What makes you say that? And I'm just going to give you a moment to have a look at that. And I'm going to have a look at the Padlet wall on my phone. There we go. It's the third column, design thinking. Oh, where is it? It's not there. Okay, let me add a column in. Here we go. I'm going to add a column. What do you see? What makes you say that? Okay, and the column's just at the very end. Feel free to put it in the chat box as well. Let's just see. Oh, it's there. Great. Thank you, Yolanda. And then Kirsten, I don't know whether you can see the wall. Are there any responses yet?
Yeah, I can see them. I'm just, hang on. Oops. Lost the Padlet for a minute.
It's at the very end. Oh, there we go.
No, I lost the Padlet for a minute. My screen flipped. Here we go. What makes you say that? Okay, someone says an iterative framework that expands and contracts as the process moves towards, oh, I like that, expands and contracts. Visual,
Yes.
that's pretty cool, isn't it?
Yes,
Places for
thank
both
you.
converging and diverging of ideas. That's also
Yes.
visual, isn't it?
Yes.
I see hexagons leading to an arrow tip, meaning there is more space for idea generation and process than product.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. Because
Ooh.
if you look at Stanford's D school model, they actually have 5 separate hexagons, all the same size. And Marcus and I, my partner who's a design thinker, we looked at that and we really wanted to emphasize the converging and the diverging and the ideation and the iterative process. And this is exactly what this group has picked up on. It's
Amazing.
that, you know, converging, diverging, so that we're at every stage, we're thinking about idea generation or whether we're trying to define what the problem is. So thank you so much for that. And that's why we actually use this particular model in terms of the geometric shapes. Now, Marcus and I, we actually work with schools. So I wanted to show you some photos of, you know, beautiful schools that have used design thinking with their students. And so this was a year 1 class looking at materials, another year 2 class looking at biomimicry and forces, year 3 looking at conflicts, goods and services. So we don't have to use design thinking to really design something that's physical or tangible. It could be to do with goods and services and managing conflicts. And then we've got here design thinking with energy, forces and exhibition. And then even the school used design thinking during COVID to try and come up with different systems. You know, every time the government changed their rules, you know, how did we navigate that system? So how can we use design thinking to create an evolving unified AI policy? So let's hear from David. He's going to share his thoughts about how
We
we
recently launched a multimedia studio at my school. I was very excited to get teachers into the space to use it. Oh, you can imagine how happy I was when one of our DP teachers offered to record the IOs in the space. I couldn't wait to hear about it, only to find out that they got in there and the students were overwhelmed and so they could not use the space because they hadn't received any guidance or any practice. Nobody had told them what to do or how to use the space. It reminds me of artificial intelligence and all the promise and prospects that there are. However, those don't automatically translate into impact in education unless we take intentional steps. A conversation ensued between two students where one was asking the other, is AI cheating? Are we allowed to use it? The other one thought about the question for a while and then said, I guess it depends on which classroom you walk into, because some teachers allowed them to use it and others did not. That is
exactly.
why, as a school, it's important that we have an evolving, unified AI policy. Evolving because it keeps changing so much that what was true yesterday may not necessarily be true today. And unified because we don't want our students having to guess which teacher will allow them to use it or not. There is a lot of promise here, but it requires us intentionally being on the same page and supporting our students to be able to maximize the opportunities that they are presented with. The pinnacle of it all for me was when one of my students said, I finally get it. It's not about whether or not I can use AI. It's about knowing when, why, and how to use AI. And that is what having a unified policy as a school will allow teachers to guide our students to be able to do. Thank
Yes.
you.
Beautiful, beautiful. I think David put that so aptly about the importance of having that evolving unified AI policy. And I suggest in the AI adoption cycle that that's very early on in the second stage. So because we know it's going to be evolving and it can be something that you can constantly improve and modify. So what does one look like? So I outlined, this is a table from my book. I outlined the steps of how we actually create an evolving unified AI policy using the design thinking process. Oh, Maria said, we applied design thinking when IB Science Diploma students plan their group 4 project. Beautiful, to integrate all the sciences to solve a problem. I love that. And you know, that's the versatility of design thinking. You can adopt this pre-K to 12 with any policy in the school. It's a way to actually creatively solve problems using convergent and divergent thinking and an iterative process. So thank you for sharing that, Maria. Wonderful. So I won't read through everything, but you know, the first step in design thinking is empathy. And I heard Dan talk about this in his keynote just earlier. You have to engage and ask students, parents, teachers, all stakeholders what their opinions are, and you need to gather data from the entire school community. It doesn't mean that the entire school community is going to be creating that policy, but you need to collect data, qualitative and quantitative data. Then we go through the define, where we've got all this data and we start converging in the define stage so that we can actually then define what actually are the aims of the policy, what are the values of the school, and what do you want to include. Then we assess obviously the risks and benefits, which is to do with empathizing and ideating in the design thinking process. Of course, there's a prototype. I think with policies, they should never be set in concrete. They're always a prototype, and there's always room for improvement, or when there's changes, as this whole AI landscape changes so rapidly, we need to be, you know, reactive as well in terms of our policy. And then reviewing and revising that policy. So you're prototyping and testing, and then perhaps implementing and educating, but using that iterative process, right? Once you've implemented and educated, let's say the EU AI Act has different implications for you, then you need to go back and probably have a look at the prototype again and include some of those elements. Okay, so I think David talked about why evolving, and I've talked about why unified. I would love to hear your thoughts about 3, 4, and 5. So choose either 3, 4, or 5 to answer on the Padlet wall. Why design thinking? I think Maria's already got an answer. Thank you. Or why prototype and why should it be co-constructed? They're the three other elements. So I'm just going to give people a chance to do that. And then I'm going to bother you, Kirsten, to go on and read out any responses. So on the oh yeah, we've already got it. In chemistry, for example, it will help you plan an investigation to get an outcome. Absolutely. Beautiful example.
I think the prototype part is kind of interesting because it follows on from the evolving part. But you have to have something. You have to say it's good enough to go for now, right?
Yes.
So you
Yes.
have to have the, all right, it's not perfect, but we're ready. But it's not embedded in stone. It's just a prototype. So then it's kind of
Absolutely.
like you can loop back to the evolving parts to like continue to refine your prototype as more information or systems change. So
Yeah.
I think I really like that part.
Beautiful.
We've got somebody's mentioned underpinned by research and evaluation
Yes.
current landscape,
Yes.
but built on for the future. So that idea of building on constantly. Design thinking encourages critical thinking skills in younger children in an engaging way. And I can't agree more.
Yes.
You just mentioned your biomimicry unit in grade 2. I started when I was working in Thailand. I studied biomimicry with a kindergarten class, 3
Yes.
kindergarten classes, and the teachers were a little bit resistant. And I said, come on, come on, come on. So we had all these standards to cover. And I said, you know, we can do this all through a design unit, and we can look at how animals, and we can look at how plants, and we can learn all the things about plants, but then we can create something from it. And the kids loved it. And with the teachers was amazed at like how far the kids could go with
Exactly.
thinking and ideas. So I think that mentioning that for the younger children, like we should never not include them in these processes. It's gorgeous.
Yes.
And then we've got design thinking meets the actual needs and not assumptions. Oh, juicy.
So good. I feel like I'm preaching to the converted. I just love this. And I think Shireen, hi Shireen, prototype safe enough to try also reinforces the iterative nature. Exactly. Like, you know, we're always evolving as humans, right? So we need to be iterating any kind of policy and it needs to be revisited. It's not set in concrete. Beautiful. Thank you for that. I feel like I'm preaching to the converted. So other considerations for your evolving unified AI policy, a little bit of research from the wonderful Professor Rose Luckin from UCL. She just released this study last year. She said so many institutions in the UK lack of policies. Only 30% had an AI policy. This is last year. There were lots of ethical concerns, a gap between awareness of biases, which I'm going to address, and actions to mitigate them. She also said that the public attitudes, there was a superficial understanding of AI, and it raises concerns about over-reliance and skill loss, which is hopefully I'm addressing that in question 3 with critical thinking. Professional development. There's an urgent need for comprehensive programs to support leaders and educators, you know, to integrate AI in a responsible and ethical way. And I think it's wonderful that Toddle are putting on this full day, giving everybody access, and you can watch the recordings and take notes and really take away lots of things. Teacher confidence. Many teachers lack confidence in using AI due to the training gaps and job security concerns. Yeah, thank you for putting that wonderful study in the link. And then another study. I'm a researcher, so I just like to see some of the current research in the last couple of years. So how would we promote AI adoption amongst teachers? Maybe the people here joining me are already on the train with me. You're on the train, you just want to learn and grow and see how it can help your students. But maybe you have colleagues that really are just not aware of the power or how it can enhance learning. So tell your colleagues it minimizes workload. It can really reducing additional tasks can encourage teachers to use it. So at the very beginning of a journey, we use it at that level, right? Increase ownership and trust, build trust and give teachers control so that they can enhance their AI acceptance. Provide support. Of course, offering support mechanisms can ease the transition. And ethics. I think that's the biggest concern I hear about from most teachers. They're worried about the ethics, whether that is to do with academic integrity or the biases that large language models do produce. Okay, so let me just, I'll briefly share this table. So I've got a table here, some guidance in my book about how to mitigate plagiarism. And so I'll briefly talk about this because I really do want to get to academic integrity and also critical thinking and just make sure that I give an overall picture in terms of AI-powered pedagogy. So how do we mitigate plagiarism? Lots of resources and support. Focus on the process. And I think that means like transforming and redefining assessment approaches, which is, I know, a problem and a question that came up earlier in today. We really need to be redefining what education looks like, and assessment drives a lot of the curriculum and instruction. So we need to be really focusing more on the process. Know your students. We're humans. We build these beautiful relationships and rapport, and we know our students. So really know your students. Encourage the critical analysis. Use a viva voce. That's used in the diploma program. I don't see why it's not used for all grade levels, where we're asking students to explain their understanding, through dialogue and communication. Promote academic integrity. So students need to be given clear guidelines and expectations, and just be really transparent in terms of those expectations. Yeah. Assessment is always something that comes up. Yeah. Is that from you, Kirsten?
Yeah, I know. I was just thinking when you said use a viva voce, and I was just thinking, with younger children, the simplest tool that we use a lot, which comes from the wonderful work of Ron Richard and the Harvard Project Zero team, is I used to think and now I think.
Yeah.
And when I'm talking to people and they're like, well, I don't know what they did, and I'm just able to ask them, what did you think before you did this, and what do you think now? And they'll show you, did they process anything? And in the end, if they process something and they change, they move forward, does it really matter how they did it?
Exactly.
So I think
Exactly.
I like that you said, because that viva voce is the simplest form that we do is I used to think and now I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So that little section was about the importance of using design thinking to create an evolving unified AI policy. We looked at a little bit of research and then really how to mitigate plagiarism. I want to move on to academic integrity and how we might strengthen that. So I have this 4-stage ethical decision-making cycle that we can use every single time we have to come across a challenge when it comes to ethics with our students, or it could be with teachers or with parents. Okay, so step 1, obviously we have to identify exactly what the ethical concern is, and I'm going to show you a specific example of that. After that, we've got to assess actually what are the potential consequences of this ethical concern if we don't try and mitigate or address it. Number 3, we've got to propose a few different solutions to that particular challenge or problem. And then we have to develop prevention strategies so that we learn from these scenarios and these challenges, and we try to encourage students not to do that in the future. I'm just going to read Theodorus's. Lately, I've been seeing that not few people become more addicted in using AI instead of trying to think themselves, yeah, is there a way to prevent it? Just trying to use AI, not being too dependent. Yes, it's true. It's true. The couple of scenarios actually may address your question. All right. So how might we teach children of all ages and adults and parents about ethical use? So I have a scenario here. This is about first graders, but I feel like you could actually apply this to any grade level. First graders use an AI tool to create their own storybooks. That's very common, including generated AI images. While the stories are really creative, many of the AI generated images inadvertently reinforce cultural stereotypes. right? How can we foster creative AI storytelling while mitigating stereotypes in AI generated images? So I was working with some lovely educators in China, and we kind of looked at this particular scenario, and a group of wonderful teachers came up using this 4-stage framework of what we should do. So what's the concern? Well, AI images to reinforce stereotypes to young children at an impressionable age really could be quite damaging. That's what the concern is. The consequences could be that it leads to development of biases in young children, right? We don't really want that. What are the solutions? Use the situation as a teachable moment to discuss bias and stereotypes with students in age-appropriate ways. And what are the actual prevention strategies? Use multiple image generators to compare outputs, allowing students to provide feedback on the appropriateness of images and involving teachers to provide guidance. So that is one way that we could actually address this particular scenario. Now, I have all of these cards. Actually, I've created these cards using a Po app. So I think Nandin is going to put the link, and it's also on the Padlet wall, but I'm just going to invite that's the Padlet wall. This is the ethical cards. It's on Po. And oh, there it is. I just saw it. And so feel free, they're free. You can, they randomly select different scenarios. There's 17 scenarios that you can use with staff or with students. And then perhaps just using the 4-stage cycle to try and go through them so that you can actually develop prevention strategies. Now, I did want to talk a little bit more about bias, actually. And I worked with the wonderful Chris Binge a few years ago. It was in my last teaching position. And he said cultural bias in AI is the same as in people. The information that we take in creates our bias. We are all the sum of the experiences we've had, the things we've read and been told. Our bias is a function of that output. It is the same for AI, particularly LLMs. And so last year I did an experiment. Okay, last year I put in one of the image generators. Can you just create a picture of a mathematician? Can you guess what different image generators came up with? Okay, so DALL-E came up with that. This is last year. That was Stable Diffusion. Very interesting, right? Stable Diffusion again. And then Flux Pro last year came up with this, which I thought, okay, that's not stereotypical. Like they're really trying to include or be more, inclusive and diverse, right? That was last year. And I thought, surely this year bias has been reduced now with the image generators, with all of the attention drawn to it. So I did it. This is literally 2 days ago. Okay, so 2 days ago, this is what Stable Diffusion came up with. This is what Flux Pro, GPT image generator, and the other Flux Pro, they still came out with really stereotypical images. Yeah, this is yesterday. And then this time DALL-E came up with something that wasn't stereotypical. So what I want to demonstrate here is that it's not that there's one image generator better than the other. All of them are trained on data from society. And as society, there are inherent biases that we need to be aware of, and we really need to teach our students about this. So this kind of pertains to my third question about leveraging AI to enhance critical thinking skills. So here we've talked about bias, teaching bias. And then I have also a table from my book to teach learners about how to fact check. So I think that question from Theodorus, that kind of, let me just go back, that kind of addresses your question too, that we have to be discerning, and we cannot just copy and paste and believe what every single large language model is giving in terms of their output. Because we used to call it hallucinations, now it's called confabulations. Large language models and AI tools, they create a mirage. That's kind of the newest term that people are using. It creates a mirage, so it's not reality. We have to discern factual information from the mirage that an AI tool may use. So if I'm using, for example, Notebook LM, and it's giving me a summary of some of the research that I put into my notebook, I still click in and look at the research and skim and read to fact check. You have to fact check what is coming out of a large language model. I still believe that we need to do that. So if you are teaching your students how to fact check, annotate drafts with sources. Okay, so I've got the actual research paper or the newspaper or some authority that I know that this is right. Provide sources packages. So where are all the primary sources, not the output of the large language model, but a resource package that has, some of the sources that you used. Use a variety of sources. So for example, with the bias in the image generation, use 5 different tools to see what the output is, and then ask students to discuss and discern. Yeah. Oh yeah, skimming, scanning skills still need to be taught. They do. It took me 30 years actually to learn how to skim, because for my doctorate, I had to read 50 papers a week and it just was impossible. So I had to really learn that skill. Shireen, what are you saying oh dear about? The ethical? Just pop it in the chat. I'm curious to know what you're saying oh dear about. Consult credible outlets, check for bias, yep, evaluate the source, and check guidelines from credible sources. So you might, go to one of the big tech companies that we trust, and they will have guidelines, in terms of how they fact check. Some of the big newspapers will have a lot of guidelines that we can follow too. Oh, the images. Yeah. Sad, right? That was yesterday. That was literally yesterday. Okay, so critical thinking. I might just show one more example then. Here is Lucy talking about how she teaches her students about critical
In theory of knowledge, one of the ways that I have experimented with AI is creating false quotes. And the purpose is to sharpen our students' critical thinking skills. So I remember teaching knowledge and technology and asking ChatGPT to write a quote. And when the students came in, I asked them, okay, this is a quote from Steve Jobs. It's about Wikipedia and the concept of power in knowledge and technology. Have a conversation with your partners. So for the first few minutes, the students would talk about the quote and say, well, he is an expert in technology. It's interesting that he talked about the power of the Wikipedia page and how it might influence knowledge. And so in the sharing time, when we had a conversation about this quote, it became evident to them that, of course, Steve Jobs might have an opinion about knowledge and technology. He might say something about the concept of power. And then as they kept on thinking, they were like, hold on a minute, Wikipedia in 1989. And so a few minutes later, they were thinking about the fact that this doesn't make sense. Wikipedia, the platform, wasn't invented until the 90s. And so as a wrap-up, we discussed the fact that every day they're interacting with various platforms, they're reading many things, and to have the critical thinking of pausing and thinking, oh, where is this coming from? Is this actually possible? Is this something that might have actually happened or not? And so when I told them I created this with ChatGPT and the voice, it kind of helped them think about the fact that they need to pause and think before discussing or reading something and reacting to it. So now when they come to TOK lessons and we have quotes on the board, their first reaction is to cross-check to see if I'm tricking them with the help of ChatGPT or if it is an actual quote and if it's worth discussing.
Exactly, exactly. So Lucy, through TOK, she, has created quite a few different scenarios using ChatGPT, and uses these scenarios to really teach her class about ethics. So they explore some scenarios. I'll show you those scenarios in a moment. There's normally a focus on human sciences and cultural bias in it. Participation is based on student consent. Groups are assigned different cultural bias experiments. And then there's integration of the TOK framework with real life applications. So here are some of the experiments that she had. So each designed to explore ethical considerations and cultural bias. So you can see there, you know, the 4 experiments and really trying to develop critical thinking with her students. She says the resulting discussions transformed the classroom into a dynamic space where students critically engaged with complex ethical dilemmas while delving deeper, developing deeper understanding of human sciences methodology and research ethics. I thought that was wonderful. Okay, so there's 3 things that I'd like to do before we finish. One is, can I please invite you on the Padlet wall to write down 1 star, 1 action from today, and then I'm going to leave you with some last words. So I'm going to ask Kirsten if she can see.
I'm just waiting for people to be tapping up 1 star, 1
Lovely.
action.
Lovely.
So great. I think I just want to thank you as well for like the design thinking visual that you shared, your interpretation of it.
Yes.
Because, and I think that's really important. And I'm actually going to put that into with the teachers that I'm working on, because they're taking on board a new program now with the MYP and the PYP, and to get them to think through now.
Yes.
So my action.
Yes, excellent. Thank you.
My action will be, so the star is thank you for sharing your interpretation of the video, and my action, as it were, will be like, well, how can I get them to go through that process so that they can then use that process having experienced it themselves. So thank you.
Beautiful, beautiful. I'm going to put the image up. I'll put a PDF, so please feel free to use
And
it.
not to do with AI, but just, you know,
Yeah.
application. Yeah.
Yep, yep, for everything. For
Yeah.
you know, I use design thinking to design my life. Yeah, that
I'm
really
just waiting to see if anybody's popping anything, but I think we've just got some deep thinking and processing going on at the moment. We do. I'm just going to check. Maybe there's some thank yous coming up in the chat.
Okay, I do have some last, I have some last words. Thank you, Justin. I've got some last words to leave you with.
Let's hear your words, and then maybe we'll see some action from people. Maybe they're
Okay,
just being
lovely.
shy.
Okay, so my last words: how might leaders pioneer an adaptive AI ecosystem that integrates ethical, innovation, pedagogical excellence, and institutional values? Okay, number 1, adopt a design thinking philosophy. And I'll put this PDF of this graphic, so please feel free to use it with your colleagues and at your schools. Co-create an evolving unified AI policy, and do that very early on. I'm standing in the way, aren't I? Let me move out of the way here. Do that very early on in your journey. So if your school hasn't done it yet, get a start on it. Get a committee so that they can start going through the empathize stage. Strengthen academic integrity via an ethics framework, which could be included in your evolving unified AI policy, right? We have to include academic integrity in any kind of policy. And develop a professional learning plan so that you have strategy, exactly what Dan says. You have a plan, you have a strategy of, you know, the different AI adoption stages, how to develop your unified policy, how to mitigate plagiarism, how to really enhance learning in this AI world. Lovely. What roadmap? This one, Yolanda? You mean this roadmap? Thank you. And okay, finishing off, remember, always keep the human in the loop. See all these beautiful pictures of educators in person where we've shared, collaborated, discussed, and co-created so many things. So please remember, keep the human in the loop. Thank you so much for joining me today. I know it's been a really long day for some of you. Thank you so much.
Not done yet.
Yeah.
So I got a few comments now to share with you.
Okay, please.
So 1 star is how you simplify complex processes. and makes the content much easier to follow and apply.
Thank you.
Another star was being given more ideas for strategies to use. And both of those had the same action. One was read your book and the other was read more of your book. So
Thank you. Thank
good
you.
for book sales. Right. And then we have somebody saying star, great pathways to follow with staff. And then they're wishing for a list of PD options for schools that are small or have a small budget. They are there. In addition to these free sessions that we put on, there are a number of other people offering free sessions.
Yes.
Like, it's really good to follow people on LinkedIn, follow people like Jennifer, follow people like Nick was on earlier, follow people like Matthew. They often do pop-up sessions. And then there's, if you message me, if you find me on LinkedIn, I know people who'll do a session for a school for around about a virtual session for around about $500. And I've done them myself for primary schools, for PYP schools. And you can get through an awful lot in an hour with a very focused session that's tailored to a school. So yeah, don't be afraid. Reach out if you want some recommendations. Tell me what it is you're looking for, and I'll see if there's anybody on network that can help. Jenny, any other recommendations on that?
Yes, because I'm just about to announce, it's going to be announced on Tuesday, we're doing an AI-powered education series free every Saturday. Dr. Justin is also presenting. So it will be topics like AI-powered inquiry, AI-powered design thinking, AI-powered multilingualism to promote translanguaging. That's Justin's one. So every Saturday that we've got about a dozen, and it's all free. All you need to do is just sign up. Yeah, yeah.
Will you put that up on Ed Events?
Yes, I will. Absolutely.
And really, so Ed Events, if you don't know that website, it's a great new website. It's been around for about a year and a half now, and he's trying really hard to get all the sort of PD loaded up on there so that it's sort of one-stop shopping. But there you go. There's a great free series coming up. But yeah, consult me if you want to just like drop in a note to me on LinkedIn. I do know people, tech educators, who do sessions or tailor sessions for schools, and they're not hugely massively expensive. So on that.
And good idea. I will put it on the Padlet wall, Theodorus. I'm going to put, so all of the free AI-powered webinar series, I'll put those details on the Padlet wall, and it'll be on my LinkedIn. It will be on my LinkedIn. Yeah.
Thank you. And I learn a lot just through following people like you and Al Kingsley. Al Kingsley's always, if you follow him, Al Kingsley, he's always putting out summaries of other people's work and links to summaries of research projects. There's an awful lot of learning that you can do out there for free as well. So a couple more stars and actions. One is use AI as a tool, not depending on it to think for you. And one action, always fact double check before implementation. It's good for all of us, really. It's really good for that. And then a final reflection from somebody here, just saying teachers have a lot to process on about to make the best out of using AI for education. And I'd agree from yourself, like start using it for yourself first so that you can think through the process, and then do some work with your students to say, like, how are you using it? What's working? What's no? What can we learn from each other? That'll give you a baseline before you start actually trying to design how you're going to use it with students. I think we need to go through those processes ourselves. But thank you, Jennifer. You're always a little bit ahead of the curve, and you're always bringing us some practical advice in there. I missed the Pedaguchi this time.
Oh, yes. If you've been to my other sessions, I do. Look, there's Pedaguchi. Pedaguchi's here to remind us, use AI to empower educators to focus on the pedagogy and to always keep human in the loop. So Barbara Amador Scott came to one of the webinars and wrote that on the chat box. And I took that and I thought, that is such a good quote. So I use that quote a lot. There's Pedaguchi. So if I do meet you in person at any stage, I always have, for anyone I always have a Pedaguchi. Yes, it's just my gift, to people, to spread love and joy in the world.